Hi, it's James, and welcome to the continuation of episode 4, 4.2. In this episode, we will continue to explore identity, self-identity, and self-awareness. We will delve deeper into maturation and early years development stages of the brain and our bodies. We shall explore why this period is so crucial to our lives, the reasons why we are so susceptible from early years, birth, early infancy into puberty. We shall analyse internal and external influences for validation, various stimulants, potential deterrents, and motivational drives. How interactions with our parents and peers can affect our perception and experiences of the world, with examples and more. Let's get to it! So what is the definition of self-awareness? And let's explore and expand on key aspects of self-awareness. Self-awareness is the conscious knowledge and understanding of one's own personality, feelings, motives, desires, and actions. It involves the ability to introspect and recognise oneself as an individual, separate from the environment and other individuals. Self-awareness is a key component of emotional intelligence and is fundamental to personal growth and development. Key aspects of self-awareness include, number 1, introspection, the ability to reflect on one's own thoughts, emotions, and behaviours. This involves examining how you feel, why you act the way you do, and what motivates you. Number 2, self-concept, the image or understanding you have of yourself, including your traits, roles, and identity. This encompasses how you perceive your strengths, weaknesses, values, and beliefs. Number 3, emotional awareness, recognising and understanding your own emotions. This includes being aware of how your emotions affect your thoughts and behaviours, and being able to manage them effectively. Number 4, perspective taking, the capacity to view oneself from an external perspective, imagining how others perceive you. This helps in understanding how your behaviours affect others and your relationships. Number 5, self-regulation, the ability to control your own behaviours and impulses, which is closely linked to being aware of them. Self-regulation is enhanced by a clear understanding of your goals and values. Number 6, awareness of the body, being conscious of your physical presence and bodily sensations. This can include being aware of how your body language reflects your inner state and how physical sensations relate to your emotions. As we transition through the stages of life, we become more self-aware. We gain a greater level of consciousness as we mature. Neural pathways expand as we learn and grow. The expansion of these pathways affects our attitudes, beliefs, opinions, and behaviours, from our own learning, self-development, and through the influence of key individuals in our lives. Obvious examples are our parents, extended family, peers, friends, and in the modern era, role models, celebrities, and influencers. Some individuals have a greater level of support from a young age, while others can be less fortunate, and I'll expand on this more later in the presentation and how it can be detrimental to emotional intelligence and growth of the maturity process. Before we proceed, I want to introduce theories and models that can help us understand common constructs and models with respect to how our consciousness of the world is influenced from infancy into adulthood. By looking at the mind-brain maturation process, believe me, it will all make sense soon. In our most early years, from birth through to the ages of 10-13, most commonly known as pre-puberty, dependent on gender, our brains are highly susceptible to new senses, visual and auditory information. We absorb information quicker, like a sponge absorbs water in these early years. We form behavioural patterns, new drivers and emotional stimulation in the early development of the brain, which shapes our identities, character and personalities. We achieve and perform many tasks and experiences with autonomy for the first time in our lives during these periods. From these experiences, we become aware of how we self-identify to the world, how we relate to others, bond and interact with them in the formation of our character and personalities, and how we relate to and interact with one another. The graph produced by Harvard, Picture, displays, during our early years of development, that our brains form new neurological pathways at a greater rate. We develop speech and language skills, and how all those experiences can integrate with cognitive function. As a community, we therefore agree by consensus to send our children to schools, so that they can expand their experiences in life, to give them the best opportunity to live their best lives, to potentially make our later life experiences more comfortable. How can that cause issues and potential for indoctrination and brainwashing, you may ask? Let's explore this on a deeper level. So what occurs within us from birth through to the age of 10-13? We go through our most rapid stages of development and growth, and it's a stage we're also most vulnerable to be guided with morals and ethics, influence behaviours, and formation of bonds and emotional imprints that impact our memories, conscious and unconscious state of being, as described and presented by Freud. I don't believe his influence can be ignored from what I've witnessed and experienced throughout my own life, and what we accept communally as acceptable behaviour are representations of ourselves. During our early years, we learn to initially hold up our own heads, to shuffle along, to crawl, to stand up, and then to walk. These are fundamental skills of movement, and we refer to them as fine motor skills. Our parents may guide us as we make our first attempts. Our own movement and desire to move are known as internal drivers, and when others guide us, are known as externally driven motivations, drivers. For example, our parents may hold us up while we move our legs and feet in an attempt to walk. They may call up to our bedrooms to wake us up in the mornings, if our own internal psychological drivers and physical being to get up aren't motivating. Who doesn't love a warm bed? Our parents may provide mental stimulation, for example, the use of alphabet cards to learn letters, language, and we associate the picture to the letters and the words. Or we may be given a toy which, when the correct button is pushed, the toy produces a sound or physical stimulant to the touch, and we mentally internalize that experience to memory through the release of neurotransmitters. This directly affects our thoughts, memories, feelings, and beliefs of that present moment. In addition to our mental stimulation provided by parents, our parents may have offered incentives for us to do chores around the house, a reward for cooperating and giving us life lessons and experience. The outcomes of these incentives mentally drive us, and we can encompass these drives and create emotional and mental attachments to said experiences, which allow us to bond with others or not to bond, depending on if the experience was positive or negative. So it has a mental and emotional effect on us as individuals. Chemicals known as neurotransmitters are released in the brain when we have an experience that can affect our mentality, resilience, and strength as we grow and develop, enabling us to repeat them or not do them again. And this forms behavioural patterns, rewards or deterrents, depending on the chemicals released for how we perceive and felt that experience. For example, if we receive money as a reward, we feel happy or elated, and the brain may release dopamine or endorphins for the achievement, and that gives us a good feeling internally. But by doing that, we potentially become dependent on external stimulation to obtain or repeat that feeling and or our behaviours. We may be told on another occasion what we did was not good enough, wrong, silly, inadequate effort, and not completed within the agreed time period for the task, and withhold a small sum of the reward, which can lead to stress and cortisol being released, leading to sadness, confusion, or depressive episodes if we do not understand why. We may ask ourselves why. What did I do wrong when I only did what I did before? We have then allowed an external source to dictate our internal state of being. There may be many reasons why. Someone may have asked you to do something you had been shown previously by a different method to complete the task, which slowed you down. You may not have the physical, mental, motor skills to complete the task, or it may be your first time using your own initiative and drives, with less instruction. Each time we perform a task, we may require stronger motivation, internal drive to undertake the task, leading to resentment and lack of our own internal motivational drives. So we internally, unconsciously affect our state of being from then onwards and potentially repeat cycles rather than take the time to stop, reflect and adjust our approaches. If we're uncomfortable, it changes our cognition and neural pathways. The individual that set the task or ourselves may be having a bad day and acting outside of character, or they aren't particularly a nice person to engage with to begin with. These example experiences can manipulate and shape our realities if we are not able to reflect on them, provide mental blocks, provide mental clarity, destroy or instill confidence, reinforce thoughts, feelings and beliefs. As we grow, we may seek external validation if we're not able to pacify our own feelings or thoughts and validate our own experiences to achieve those tasks or meet those internal or external requirements. Our thoughts, feelings and beliefs can become dependent on what has been asked of us or what we ask of ourselves, and that distorts our actions and future behaviours, or compounds them. There are many ways to achieve the completion of a task, or explain a situation or a concept, or influence beliefs, thoughts and opinions. These are mainly theories and constructs that we build up in our mind based on our expectations. We then, unfortunately, incorporate negative thinking, restraints, and limitations due to other factors in life. Even as a child or as an adult, we may consider time constraints, risks, money, and external influences to complete a task, not just our own expectations and limitations or ability. We may be told something is wrong, but that it's not actually wrong. It's wrong based on the perception or the expectation of another's experience. The concept and conditioning of something being right or wrong is an agreed concept of what we rationalise as normal or expectant. Fundamentally, there only is what is. What we've done and what we've said, or our behaviours, etc. Everything else is what we attribute to our own experience, knowledge and skills of capabilities and abilities. For example, I had to learn how to use this application, Tweencraft, to be able to present this work. I mentally built up in my mind the requirements and expectations of how I decide to present it to everyone. I had to plan, research and study, whilst integrating my own prior experiences, knowledge, skills and abilities to deliver it. I faced my own mental challenges. Where I lacked knowledge, I sought external support so that I could achieve the task, and as long as I met my personal requirements, the target audience I aimed it at, my work at, I could publish it feeling satisfied. There may be errors, there may be inconsistencies in the presentation. However, I did it to the best of my abilities to meet what others expect of published online content. That it met written language expectations of others to be understood, not just my own. For example, I could have wrote it in Italian, and what that would require adjustments to satisfy the grammar of that language and vocabulary to be understood. I may even stutter a little as I record my voice. Alternative cultural examples may have required to be included to appropriately convey and present the information to be understood by an Italian-speaking audience compared to an English-speaking audience. My efforts aren't necessarily right or wrong. We all interpret, process information and mental stimulus in our own preferred manner. Some writers may convey a concept in fewer words and use better examples to demonstrate their thoughts, feelings and beliefs, opinions and experiences with an alternative approach. Others may publish a book, produce short-format leaflets, even go to the effort of publishing a white paper to be peer-reviewed by scientists or scholars. One challenge we face in modern times is people being able to concentrate long enough to absorb new information and stimulus. Collectively, you might get bored of my style or find my explanations remedial or potentially too complex and long and drawn out. However, I convey the information with examples to be understood from my perspective rather than others. That's a responsibility and accountability that each of us take, and dependent of the audiences mentioned above as we present ourselves, and a culmination and integration of our life experiences, education, knowledge, skills, resources, training, and our own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and potential influences, drives and motivation to what will satisfy our own and my expectations of the work I deliver. I feel good about what I've wrote, therefore I am happy and content to publish it. I've taken the time to learn, process, and use what's agreed by standards, reputable and credible sources to make the presentation. Of course, this can be argued or criticised by others, but that is an opinion, thought or belief on the imprint made on their cognitive and emotive processes, the reflection of all their own personal attributes, attitudes, development, knowledge and skills, and resources in life, and their experiences that have shaped their reality. To be more confident in my approach, a number of years ago I studied the English language at a deeper level, so that I could present in a more concise manner to include apt examples driven on reason and logic and not based always on conveying information based on emotive drives, doing my best to be subjective and objective, to not present in a biased manner. Let's not let this episode get too long. I wish to maintain your concentration and attention, so let's conclude what has been presented in Inversiverse episode 4.2. I presented what occurs during our early years stages of development, the reasons why and what we experience as we develop ourselves through maturation of the brain and body's physical growth. We're focused on being a highly susceptible period of our lives. The fundamentals of why we have schooling systems, how we may interact with our parents and external sources, how our thoughts, feelings, beliefs with interactions of others may or may not develop through bonding and imprints. I defined internal and external validation, why it may affect our conditional responses and motivational processes to perform or carry out certain tasks or daily activities in our lives. I drew attention to some key examples and situations that release neurological and hormonal activities in our brains and bodies, and how that can define and drive emotive responses that relate to conscious and subconscious activity within ourselves or others. Lastly, I've shared some of my own personal experiences of self-development and reflections, the motivating drivers to do these presentations in the manner I do, and further develop oneself, which aids in forming my self-identity. For example, you now know that I identify as an English speaker, writer, and can write also in Italian. Therefore, I self-identify as English, and my name is James, as an example. I am fortunate to have an Italian mother and can converse and write in Italian, and have experienced Italian culture throughout my life, which has driven some of my own internal and external experiences that differ from the English culture or others around the world. Because of this, I can identify myself as Anglo-Italian, a heritage that I'm proud of. Forza Italia. I have also discussed how others perceive, based on their own experiences, that others' opinions, thoughts, feelings and beliefs, their criticisms, motivation and confidence factors are a reflection of others' expectations and their own standards, their own perceptions, experience, knowledge, skills and abilities that we all have as unique individuals. In the current episode, we'll take a look in greater depth of how the schooling system may be abused to imprint an image of self that may lead to an existential crisis, or how it can influence social aspects, culture, morals and ethics, leading to potential indoctrination and brainwashing. I will discuss labels and how identifying with a label can provide stereotypes, cause bias and or prejudice, and negative aspects to identity and how we identify ourselves. For now, thank you for joining me, your time, patience and attention. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Arrivederci!